Welcome to Looking Within, a podcast to help you quiet your mind, settle your body, and see God's presence in your everyday life. I'm Julie. I hope our time together will help you to feel more grounded, whole, and filled with a growing desire to be a conduit of God's love and presence to the world around you. Now, let's begin. How do we celebrate Christmas in a COVID world? How do we experience the hope, joy, peace, and love that Christ longs to bring into our lives, even in the midst of this year's global anxiety and suffering? This has been our conversation for the past few weeks, and today Charles Ortloff and I join you for our second to last episode in this 12-part Advent series. Tomorrow is Christmas Eve, a time when we hear the Christmas story. Let's turn to that story today and see how the love of God shows up in that little baby placed in a manger. The story of Christ's birth is so familiar to us. The long trip to Bethlehem for the Holy Family, the shepherds keeping watch over their flocks by night, angels in the fields near Bethlehem, and sometime later, the wise men. We've heard it all 100 times. It all seems right and normal for us. But we may miss the surprise of God coming to us as a little child, a powerless little person. How can He ever help us? But maybe that's the point of starting the story of God's love for us in this helpless child laying in the cattle-feeding box. It starts, ends, and is lived out in weakness. What good can this little one do for us?
I'm reminded of an old story that I first heard in connection with AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. There was a man who fell into a deep hole and couldn't get out. A pastor walked by. The man asked, "Pastor, I've fallen into this hole and I can't get out. Can you help me?" The pastor wrote out a prayer and dropped it into the hole. A little while later, a physician walked by. Again, the man asked, "Hey, doc, I've fallen into this hole and I can't get out. Can you help me?" The doctor wrote him a prescription and dropped it into the hole. Finally, a friend of the man walked by, and the man cried out, "Hey, Bob, I've fallen into this hole and I can't get out. Can you help me?" The friend jumped into the hole himself. Shocked by this, the first guy asked, "Why did you do that? Now we're both in here." "Yes, but I've been here before and I know the way out." Now, the point of this story is not a put-down of pastors or physicians or professional helpers of any kind. The story simply reminds us of a wisdom that we all know. Learned information is one thing, but life experience is quite another. To have experience with other people who are suffering, or to have paid attention to our own suffering, only enhances our ability to love and help others. Again and again, I've experienced the healing power of people listening to my story, and in their compassion and love assuring me that they've been there, and they stand there with me now. In Jesus' life and death, He again and again stands with people who are suffering. The woman who weeps at His feet, overcome with love for the one who first loved her. Matthew, the despised tax collector who gives a banquet for Jesus and all of his no-account friends, because Matthew is so filled with love from Jesus. And of course, that thief on the cross, filled with love from the one who stands with him, though he didn't have to. It was love that brought Jesus into that place of suffering. Can you imagine a friend so loving that he will go with you into your worst experiences, even suffering them Himself? But today, on the night before Christmas, our thoughts are not about what this child will one day do for us. Rather, God's love for us comes without our own logic. Our hearts just respond to the deep love we find in this little child. Like a little baby reaching out to us in arms of love. We don't think about it. We just do it. We know what to do with a child. We love him.
What a beautiful picture of the Christ child you've painted, Charles. The love of God is so powerful that it jumps over our logic, our thoughts about what's in it for me. It is not a quid pro quo. This goes right to our heart. We know this child, will one day stand with us in deep love and compassion, no matter what. But for now, we see him coming to us in weakness as a little child, and that draws us in closer.
Yes, your first instinct is right. What do you do with a little child? You love him. Love him this Christmas, again and again and again. You love him.
Our Advent preparations are nearly finished. We now end where the story began a long time ago. In fact, before time and creation began, all things were created from the love in God's heart. And now, in this child, that love is reaching out to us. In our celebration of Christmas, even in the midst of uncertainty or suffering, in fact, in the face of it, we reach out to this child, who is love. What do you do with a little baby? You love him. In this quiet space and time, I'd invite you to gently close your eyes and to take a few deep breaths in and out, in and out. Hear the sound of the bowl calling you to look within. Let it center you. Let it awaken you to God's presence. Picture Mary holding the Christ child. See the flow of love back and forth between mother and child. Hold that picture. See, hear, touch, feel. Be fully present to Mary and the Christ child. What do you do with this little baby? We'll be back with you in about 2 minutes. take one more minute to stay in this place of love. Though you've heard the Christmas story hundreds of times, feel the exchange of love between you and this little child, as if for the first time. I'd invite you now to take a few deep breaths in and out. In and out. Hear the bowl sound calling you back to this day. Gently open your eyes, remaining still for a moment longer. We're almost there to Christmas Eve, to our wonderful yearly celebration. Though this year will be different, it is in this difference that we find a clear path to God. Those who have suffered much have always been the first to reach out to Jesus for his compassion and help. Today, we stand with the one who stands with us. He comes to us in weakness as a little child. Your first instinct is right. What do you do with a little child? You love him. Love him this Christmas. Again and again and again. You love him.
Join us again on Friday as we take one more look at God's love for us this Christmas in our own stories about Christmas.
It's in this little child in a stable that our hearts are opened to love, his love for us and our love for him. Blessings to you, and God's abundant love be with you all. Thank you for making time for your inner self today, for developing and enriching your relationship with God through reflection and discovery. Whatever you've experienced, carry that with you in the coming days. You can find more episodes at our website, Gloria-Day, that's DEI.com/lookingwithinpodcast, or subscribe through your favorite podcast app. If you know someone who might enjoy and benefit from this podcast, share it with them. Your financial contributions make this ministry possible. To give, visit gloria-day.com/giving. Thank you for your support, and we'll see you next time.